Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with a love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums... Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi.
Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So, y'all, this has been a pretty crazy week for me in a way that's different than usual. Instead of all of my usual traveling and stuff, I'm actually back in Harrisburg, and Miles is with me, and Zoe is here, and we have not just our 3 dogs with us, but a bonus dog named Maple. And I gotta tell y'all, 3 dogs is a lot of dogs. 4 dogs is a lot of dogs. But it's been a really great week. It's been a lot of fun. We actually went to a sniff spot. Do you guys know about sniff spots? I don't know if you guys know about sniff spots. So if it's sniff, I don't know what that was. Anyway, there is this, I guess it's an app, and it's called Sniff Spots. And people who have properties that have like cool woods on them or whatever, kind of like short term, like for an hour, rent them out to you, and you go and you take your dogs and you do dog things there. And today we found one that was about 45 minutes away that was it had a pool and the dogs were allowed to swim. So we all went swimming and it was a super blast. And now all of the dogs are tired and all of the humans are tired, myself included. So yeah, so that's really what's been up this week. And I know, for those of you who listen all the time, I do want to take a moment and thank you for your grace and support for last week when the episode was very short because of the move. I did appreciate that. And I'm going to try and make it up to you all this week because we've got a lot of stuff going on here. We've got a full headline story. We've got an interview about a very recent zoo news topic, which I'm really excited to share with y'all. It's going to be a good time. So before we get to that, I do have a couple things. One of the things, I haven't pushed this for a minute. I'm kind of bad at promoting things when it's for me or about me or whatever. But I do want to remind y'all that we are taking a trip to go do some sea turtle conservation in Ecuador later this year. And there are still spots available for that trip. So reach out to me if you want more information on that. And I would love to have y'all come along. And then also, the other kind of newer thing that we're doing, it's not too new anymore, but it's been pretty fun, is we have a Rossifari Discord now. So the show notes will have a link to that, and I'll make sure I put it in my stories as well. And we're actually starting a book club. And this is not something, by the way, that I am running, but I am enjoying being a part of. And the book club happened very organically. People wanted to do it. And there were a lot of people that were worried about if we were trying to read something too deep or too crazy, it might take too long. So we're going to start off with reading at least the first book, and maybe more, of the Animorphs series, which is a kind of kids series that deals with animals and also fun adventure-y stuff. I haven't read any of them yet. So if that's something that might interest you, hop on into the Discord. And yeah, all the other things still remain true. Of course, you can hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. Patreon.com/Rossifari is how you support the pod, all the good stuff. But with all of that said, we're going to open the Zoo News section with a special guest. Enjoy. All right, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, LynnLee Schmidt. I'm a COO, or like we like to call here, integrator at Tanganyika Wildlife Park.
Yes, it's good to see you again.
Yes, you too. I'm glad we get to stay in touch after your visit here in our last podcast.
Yeah, it's been nice. So you have something going on at your park right now that I'm just going to let you talk. Tell me everything going on with this situation.
Yeah, so we have a premature giraffe who was born via what we call in the industry terminal C-section, and I'll explain that a little bit more. It's a bit bittersweet of a story, but essentially her mom, Virtue, 16-year-old female reticulated giraffe. She'd had 5 prior pregnancies, no complications, no issues, lots of healthy calves. And she started going off feed, losing her appetite. Definitely, when you stop eating as much as you're supposed to, you start to get more lethargic and more leaning against things if you're a giraffe. So we started administering antibiotics and steroids and different medications to try to treat something that might be going on. We got her in the chute, did a standing sedation, which is where we make them a little bit sleepy, but not so sleepy that they would, lay down and hurt themselves. That's one of the most difficult things about sedating giraffes is that that's a long way down and a long way up. And when you're woozy, it's dangerous. So we did that within our giraffe chute. Initial blood work didn't look very good, but it wasn't revealing of much of anything other than that her body was in trouble, right? So they call it pregnancy toxemia, which is essentially means like you're sick and pregnant at the same time. There's a little bit more science to that, but to keep it simple. And so we gave her some medications, fluids, more steroids, trying to, give her body the boost it needed to get well. Checked on the calf. It was still alive. She was about 13 months and maybe 1 week or 2 weeks at that time. Then we hoped she would eat, right? That was the big thing that she needed to do. But over the next 72 hours, she did not eat. We were on 24-hour watch because if she did go down and passed away, we would have less than a minute to get the baby out before it dies of hypoxia. So very, touch and go, checking in on her all the time. We decided to do another standing sedation after 3 days of her not eating and looking a lot worse. Check her blood values again. We were going to try to do more aggressive fluid therapy, see if there was anything that we could do to get her over the hurdle. But if her blood values had decreased, started to look worse, we planned on doing the terminal C-section. And that means you sedate the mom, you do the C-section, remove the calf, and then euthanize the mom. Because the mom wouldn't recover from that. Now, C-sections in giraffe by themselves are incredibly rare. There's only been 3 ever performed, and only 1 has a female recovered from. None have calves lived through. So it would have been, with as compromised as she was, that is already a really risky surgery to try to recover her from. That did not seem like an option for us. So in that standing sedation, her blood showed high lactate and also high clotting factor, which indicates what they call decompensation, which is just dying. The body is dying. So we sedated her, got the calf out, euthanized mom while we got the calf breathing again, which I don't know. I'm sure our team has not dealt with yet. And I think that's something that's really difficult, right? Like you don't get a minute even to mourn the loss of that mom while you move to trying to do the next thing. And because she didn't drop from the birth canal like she's supposed to, giraffe are born like this, where their, airway gets kind of cleaned out by hanging. And they're pushed through the canal, and that tightness around their body kind of stimulates their brain to be like, I'm being born. So none of those things happened. She didn't have the smack on the ground that sometimes tells their lungs to start working. So we were stimulating her lungs, cleaning her nasal passage, delivering oxygen, and she took her first breath. And this was, as a leader, this was a part where I feel like I could have done a better job, John. One of our keepers looked up at me. She's newer in the field, not as crusty as I am. And she had these wide, bright eyes, like, she's breathing, right? And I said, no, we have a lot of hurdles to go. Don't you dare get excited yet. And the one thing I'm definitely learning in this process is we have to celebrate every single milestone because,
Sure.
We've been working with Dr. Priya at Columbus Zoo, Dr. Thompson from Binder Park, Dr. Brittany from Wildlife Veterinary Services down in Texas, Amy over at the International Center for Giraffe Conservation at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. And none of them have ever heard of this situation, like never a calf born cesarean that lived and then add premature to that mix. That is also a recipe that doesn't go very well either. But she took her first breath. So celebrate that milestone. That's been about 4 days. I think we're on day 5 now. I'll be honest, not all of us have slept very much. I think we've all got at least one full night's sleep or at least one night at home where we could have gotten a full night's sleep. But, that first day was a 20-hour day for most of us. And had to get temp stabilized, had to get the reversal given to her that, her mom had sedation. So then she had sedation. So had to reverse the sedation. Give her steroids to wake her lungs up. We gave her a diuretic to try to remove any fluid that might be in the lungs that didn't get expelled in the way a normal calf would. Antibiotics. One of the first big hurdles was her temperature. So we actually used a bear hugger like you would see in a veterinary clinic that blows hot air over them. That helped get her temp up to stable. Then we were struggling to keep her breathing. She actually stopped breathing at one point when we had her laying on her side. Her body did not like that. We got x-rays, got her back breathing again. And then we went and rented an oxygen machine. We were really debating transporting her to K-State where they would have ICU for foals and calves. But we weren't sure she could make that trip. And we didn't have anyone local that had the equipment that we needed or felt like they knew what they were doing enough with giraffes to let us take her to them. So we went and rented an oxygen machine ourselves. If you'll remember that refuse to lose core value we have around here, like hold my beer. That's helping at the moment.
Seems like it. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And this is all in the first 8 hours. So we got plasma from Dickerson Park Zoo. Are you familiar with that program?
Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah, so cool. So they had been banking from their giraffe Millie over the last few years, which I think Millie was also a bottle raised calf. At some point, I'm going to slow down enough and learn more about her. And I want to go meet her and say thank you in person. So we were able to deliver that plasma, which is really vital because she didn't get colostrum and initial immunity from mom and probably wasn't getting great nutrition from mom there towards the end either because mom wasn't eating. And then plasma on board. We started getting her more sternal. She couldn't hold her neck up on her own. So she, today I made a list of milestones she needs to accomplish, like hold your neck up on your own, check. Stand up with assistance, check. Walk with assistance, check. Next will be walk without assistance, and we're getting really close to that. We've been tube feeding her colostrum, again, replacement from bovine. 24 hours a day, 4-hour shifts, 2 to 3 people at a time. She is a workout to help get up and down. She's only 113 pounds, but she is 113 pounds with a lot of confidence and no coordination. So, Luckily, we found a lot of moments to laugh. Today, right before I called you, I was hiding underneath a blanket with her, trying to pretend like I was mom with a bottle in my hand. And I ended up sticking the bottle through a hole in the towel, and she sucked the whole bottle down for the first time. And
That's
I was,
amazing.
hallelujah. Like, so learn to eat on your own. Check. So yeah, it's been great, and the collaboration with everyone has been fantastic. Like, this is when the zoo community really shines. We are talking about it, so people can follow the story on our social media over at Tanganyika Wildlife Park. That's a scary choice. This calf is by no means out of the woods. We tried to reduce her oxygen today. It did not go well. We tried to take her off IV fluids. It did not go well. We still have the hurdle of ruminant digestion is really complex, and almost all bottle raised calves have some sort of scours or what is essentially diarrhea. And then they get dehydrated, and sometimes they don't make it through that. Sometimes their rumen doesn't develop properly. Like, I want to share the positives, but just like after that first breath where I'm like, no, we have a long way to go. I want to set realistic expectations too. So, but we just felt like this story, we're in awe of our team and their dedication and their commitment and how they're all coming together. And we feel like, zoos do great things and we don't always talk about them. So we wanted to share. We know we're not the only one who's ever had a story like this where the team is caring for an animal around the clock. But we wanted to make it public, even if it's not the happiest story in the end, which it could be. But every day she's alive, she's defying what many veterinarians thought was possible, and teaching us all sorts of things about how to give future calves that may not have what they need, or be born early, or mom might reject them, a better chance at survival.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I love that you guys have been so transparent about it right from the start. I think that's really important. And it is cool to see all of the zoos that you're talking about and places that you're mentioning. Some are ZAA, some are AZA, it doesn't matter. Everyone's coming together for a giraffe. And I think it's really easy to forget that sometimes, that, even when there are those differences, the community will come together for an animal. And your team, I know a lot of your team, and I am 100% sure that they are all, even if they're not working 24-hour shifts, they're all working 24-hour shifts.
Yeah, and anybody who's not working with her is keeping everything else going, so that, the experience stays the same for all of our guests and all of our other animals as well. She's not our only medical case at the moment. Maybe the biggest lift at the moment, but not the only one. So yeah, that's the hard part of zookeeping, right? You don't get to go home and process. You just get to keep going. So they're full of grit, determination, and tough cookies over here.
Well, we love it. I miss you guys. I wish I could see it in person. I'll tell you that much. That's something else. So.
It's awesome. Well, hopefully we'll keep you. We filmed more today, so hopefully we'll keep you in the loop with at least some social media videos that you can feel like you're here, feel like you're part of it. So.
Definitely. And you've got my number too. Seriously, if there's anything that we can do to help in any way, the Rossifari community or me, just let me know. I know I'm far away and not a vet, but if there is anything, just, if nothing else, I'm one of many people cheering you guys on right now.
That has been so helpful, and we've received such amazing comments and messages from all of our colleagues and friends across the country, and that's super helpful. There was a call when she stopped breathing. I was actually on the phone with Dr. Priya, who was at the park with her kids, taking this call for me to help talk me through this, and we were talking about the plasma, and somebody stuck their head out of the stall and said, she's not breathing. And I said, oh, Priya, I have to go. I think we just lost her. And Priya said, don't give up yet. It's going to be okay. And, just having that she's checked in every day. She's not the only one. We have a group message with a lot of these vets and experts all together, and they're checking in every day. They're encouraging us. That blood work looks good. That nasal tube was a great idea. Excellent job on the oxygen machine. Great job on that, stirrup you're using to lift her up. And, just continuing to cheer us on is so helpful. But I also know there's a lot of zookeepers and giraffe trainers that listen to your podcast. So if you are not training your giraffes for blood draw and plasma, there is a protocol. You can reach out to many different zoos to get it, but for sure, Amy Shills at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, that is going to be the thing that gives her the chance, right? And without that, there would have been no chance. So train your giraffes, get the blood, get the plasma, store the plasma, do the thing. We will definitely be working on it after this. It's something I think that probably is in all of our minds all the time, but until you have a minute where it means a lot to you or you need it, it doesn't get prioritized, but it is going to the top of our list.
I love that. Amy was the guest recently. Well, not that recently anymore, and same thing, just like, how can you not fall in love with that person? Yeah. Just the most amazing human. So yeah. I love seeing how it's all connected, and, it's just a beautiful thing. So yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome. I would say, hey, we've got this going on. And we were talking to all of them before, knowing that, we had a mom who was not doing well and that this might be the outcome. So at least the day of, no one was surprised at the phone call, and they already kind of knew a little bit about what we were talking about. But, someone's like, well, have you talked to this person? Have you got this person in? And this person's really great. And there's a woman named Wanda down in Texas. I think the name of her facility is Wanda's Zoo, and she specializes in neonates, and especially those that have been orphaned or abandoned. And she was, two people were like, you have got to talk to this woman. She's a wizard. She's magical. She's great at getting things on the bottle. She can save anything. And so we had a great phone call, and she gave me a little pep talk. And it's just, this industry is amazing. So lucky to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Oh, such a cool story, and I am so grateful for the relationship I have with Tanganyika Wildlife Park, and can't wait to see whatever comes of this story. But with that said, we actually have another headline story this week, because I wrote up a whole big thing before that interview was scheduled. So we'll head into that next. All right, so this one isn't zoo related. It's more in the conservation world, but it's important enough that I want to feature it here before we dive into all the other stories. And that is about the fact that this week in the United States, the Trump administration has moved to further weaken the Endangered Species Act. Now, keep in mind, the administration has already announced that they plan to sundown the act entirely, meaning if they get their way, the law itself will cease to exist. But until that particular bit of evil goes through, there are still lots of ways the administration can dismantle bits of it, and the current regulatory change is a doozy. The administration has changed the definition of the word harm as it is used in the act. Until now, the definition has included, quote, any significant modification or degradation of habitat that kills or injures animals by impairing their ability to eat, shelter, or breed. Which, yeah, that's a broad definition of harm when it comes to endangered species, but it's also a pretty darn accurate one. And I hope if you're listening to this, then you know that so much of the conservation work that we're doing in this world right now is focused more on fixing that stuff than the actual just killing of animals directly. And so the new rule rescinds this longstanding definition, and now something like destroying an endangered species habitat or nesting area is no longer considered illegal. So this opens the door to fossil fuel mining and drilling and agricultural development, and even just land development for housing or businesses on a lot of the land that is currently protected under the Endangered Species Act. Now, because I know that I have a liberal mindset, especially when it comes to environmental issues, who am I kidding, with all issues, I did want to look at both sides of this discussion. So after reading my first source about it, I went to the Department of Interior's website, where they actually announced this move. And they did so with the headline, quote, Department of the Interior restores clear ESA enforcement by rescinding misguided harm definition. Which already, I was like, and then the government goes on to explain that the expanded, though accepted for decades, definition of harm goes against the original intent of the bill, and that this rule returns the ESA to the original intention of the authors. So I'm actually going to quote quite a bit of the press release here. So this is all directly from the website. For years, federal agencies abused the ESA to obstruct lawful land use and burden American families and businesses, said Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. That approach turned routine activity into a regulatory trap, drove up costs that impacted people's lives, and expanded federal authority beyond what Congress intended. This action restores common sense, respects private property, provides much-needed certainty for landowners, and follows the statute Congress actually passed. President Trump is rescinding overly broad and burdensome regulations that have restrained our fishermen for too long, said Department of Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. We're returning the ESA to its foundational purpose to ensure legitimate conservation goals are met without sacrificing economic growth and American prosperity. The ESA's core protections remain firmly in place. Actions that directly injure or kill listed wildlife will continue to be prohibited. Existing permits and incidental take statements will remain valid and unchanged. What ends today is a system that repeatedly punished people for indirect or speculative impacts never contemplated by Congress. The administration is committed to protecting wildlife using gold standard science, the law, and the tools Congress actually gave us, said U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Director Brian Nesvik. We can protect species and respect communities at the same time. The final rule will reduce unnecessary permitting, cut compliance costs, and eliminate confusion for landowners, small businesses, energy producers, farmers, ranchers, and local governments. It brings long overdue financial and regulatory relief to citizens who faced unpredictable delays and unnecessary costs due solely by interpretations that went far beyond the statute. Told you it was a long quote. So that's a lot of words, but let me parse it for you. Even without reading any other sources, just looking at exactly what is written there, it becomes clear. This is almost a full dismantling of the ESA. Actions that directly injure or kill listed wildlife will continue to be prohibited, but that's it. Directly. So you shoot a bald eagle? You break the law. You smash a hellbender with a rock, you break the law. But you destroy the entire stream system that the hellbenders live in. You poison those waters with industrial waste, or I don't know, you cut down all the trees those eagles live in. Not a problem. Not anymore. This is what the administration is calling gold standard science. And yes, they actually capitalized all three of those words when it comes to conservation. And honestly, y'all, and I know you know this, but that's just not how any of this works. I would actually find it fascinating to see a study that looked at whether hunting or the decimation of protected habitat is worse for any given species. And yes, I know that plenty of species have been hunted to extinction, while plenty more have been human-developed into extinction. So I genuinely don't know which threat is worse, but I do know that both are incredibly problematic. And to me, that press release just reads like a childish defense of bad behavior. Anyone who knows anything about conservation can see right through that. And I get this idea that the ESA may have, over the years, become more potent without Congress necessarily readdressing it. But that's okay. The idea that somehow the people in Congress know better how to save animals than, the conservationists who have been lifting up the ESA as the gold standard of legislation for conservation laws out there, blows my mind. So the tone of this press release is ridiculous. And beyond that, this is just a huge problem. With so many of the changes the current administration has made, there's a sense of just get to the next presidential election and this can be walked back, or even just have a successful midterm and we can stop a lot of this. And that is true in a lot of the situations that gets discussed with. But when it comes to this kind of thing, you just can't undevelop land. You can't reborn the, eagle's nests that won't happen because there are no trees there anymore. Undevelop and reborn, they're not even words. Autocorrect has had a heck of a time with me when I'm working on this story. But yeah, if a neighborhood is built on currently protected land when it's no longer protected, you can't just show up under the next president and be like, hey, so we know you have your house here and stuff and your kids go to school here, but an endangered snail species used to live here, so you have to move, and we're gonna just destroy this whole neighborhood, and then we're gonna plant all native plants again, and maybe in a few years, hopefully the snails will return. And that's what we're looking at right now. And it makes me think of this term that I love, and it's so much easier to describe this visually than it is with words, but this is a non-visual podcast, so we're going to do it with words. There's this oft-discussed concept in ecology called the shifting baseline syndrome. And to be clear, the term is used outside of the conservation world as well, but I'm going to talk about it as it pertains to nature right now. So the idea is basically that our understanding of nature as it was, or as it should be, is how we saw it while growing up. The norm becomes whatever was our norm. So let's say you grew up in an area outside a patch of woods, and every summer you would play outside into the evening, and over the course of the summer you would see 20 deer, 30 turtles, and 1,000 birds. Because obviously every kid playing outside was also keeping a detailed count of every animal they saw. Actually, knowing my audience, that's probably not too far from the truth. But anyway, so as you grow up, you realize that now, during the same time frame, you only see 10 deer and 10 turtles and only 200 birds. And some of the species of those animals that you saw, you now don't see at all. So you decide to become invested in conservation, and you go and get all kinds of cool degrees, and you become the principal conservationist for that patch of woods. And at the end of your career, you've been incredibly successful and now again see 20 deer, 30 turtles, and 1,000 birds every summer, including some of those species you hadn't seen for a while. So you retire happy, knowing that you saved that patch of land. The problem is that before humans showed up and ruined things, that patch of land had 1,000 deer and 2,000 turtles and 10,000 birds every summer, and also, even though the forest has grown from 10,000 trees to 20,000 trees because of your work, before people showed up, there were 50,000 trees there. Heck, your house was built over an area that housed 40 trees of a now extinct species, and also a now extinct species of newt that we don't even know about yet. Now, obviously, this is an overtop example, and anyone who studied as hard as our fictional ecologist version of you will definitely have learned about the shifting baseline syndrome. But to the average person who is kind of concerned about the environment, it becomes a real problem. And this change to the ESA serves to quickly accelerate this problem. If this is allowed to reach its natural conclusion, the next generation will grow up in a land that is significantly less protected and has less wildlife, and they won't even know what they are missing. It's truly a devastating blow to one of the best pieces of conservation legislation in the world right now, and I am just sickened by it. Sorry to share it with y'all, but had to be said. That does bring us to our births for the week, however, and so this is going to get a lot more fun for a minute. The Santa Barbara Zoo has welcomed twin red panda cubs, the first time the zoo has had panda births since 1993. Born to Mom Ruby and Dad Raj, the cubs are doing well. Ruby is being an attentive mom so far, allowing the zoo to remain hands-off during the early part of the cubs' lives. Longleat has announced the birth of a red panda cub as well. The single cub was born to Mom Emma and Dad Coda. Mom is an experienced mom, but this is Dad's first time contributing to the genetics of the red panda population in human care. And the panda cubs keep coming. Vogelpark Avifauna, a zoo in the Netherlands, has announced the birth of a cub as well. The translation feature of the announcement was severely lacking, but from what I can tell, the cub is doing well and the zoo is very excited. You know what? Me too. Oh, but we are still not done with panda cub births. Hamura Zoo in Japan has announced the birth of a single cub to mom pair. There aren't any additional details about the little one at this time, except that it is doing well, and really, that's all we need to know. Hertfordshire Zoo is also joining the panda party, with twin cubs being born to first-time parents Neela and Ash. Is that enough? Have we done? No? No? You want more panda births? Gosh, y'all are getting greedy. But fine. 2 cubs have been born at Pairi Daiza, a zoo in Belgium that I am sure I mispronounced. Mom Loha is doing a great job with them, including moving them between nest boxes, meaning they are rarely but occasionally visible to the public as mom scoots them around. And now we're going to bring it back to the States. I'm pretty sure I didn't have a chance to throw this into a recent Zoo News episode because people keep announcing great news on Fridays, which drives me crazy. But anyway, the Cincinnati Zoo has also welcomed a red panda cub to first-time mom Marcy and first-time dad Zuko. I know both of these pandas very well, and if you look at my recent video posts, you can see an ultrasound of Marcy that I got to observe, which was absolutely adorable. This is also a milestone for the Cincinnati Zoo because it is the 100th red panda cub born there, which is just incredible. So congrats to our buddy Paul and the entire team at the zoo. And no, we aren't done. Because, keeping it in Ohio, Cleveland Metroparks has also welcomed a new red panda cub, proving that doing 2 weeks of births at once during panda birthing season is a whole lot. The little one is doing super well, and mom is doing a great job taking care of it behind the scenes. I cannot wait to get back to the zoo to see this little one. And that is it for panda births this episode, but holy cow, y'all, that's 11 cubs in the last 2 weeks. But I do actually want to slow it down for a minute and take a moment to remind everyone that red panda cubs have a high mortality rate, both in the wild and in human care. And as such, not all of these cubs might make it. And beyond that, I happen to know of additional cubs that have been born, but not announced yet, and also of cubs that didn't survive. And so the facilities just don't announce, and they let their keepers grieve in peace. And so in the midst of all this joy, I do want to take a moment to send love and condolences to all of the keepers who experienced that loss over this time period and have to do so in a bit more of a private way. Y'all know who you are, and you know I love you and mourn your losses with you. Moving on from red pandas to other births, Cleveland Metroparks Zoo has also welcomed an Amur leopard cub, one of the rarest species in the world. Mom Marta and Dad Silas are the parents, and this is the first Amur leopard cub born at the zoo. It's actually the first time one has been born in the state of Ohio, which is pretty surprising given that Cleveland, Cincy, Columbus, Akron, Toledo, the Wilds, they're all there. Not saying that they all have Amur leopards, but I kind of always have to stop and marvel at the sheer amazing amount of incredible facilities in Ohio. There aren't great population studies that have looked at the Amur leopard population in the wild, but it's estimated that less than 100 survive in their original range today. So every birth, whether in the wild or in human care, is a huge deal. A female western lowland gorilla has been born at the Detroit Zoo, the second ever gorilla born there. The little one is a female and was born to mom Tulavu and dad Mishindi, the silverback at the zoo. Mom is doing well taking care of her daughter at this time. And then last but not least, in births this week, 5 bush dog pups have been born to mom Luz at Little Rock Zoo. Luz is doing well rearing the pups behind the scenes, and while they aren't visible yet, the zoo has promised to feature the pups on their socials frequently, so follow along to watch them grow. Oh, okay, we're going to do one more. This one came in late, but I'm excited. The Brookfield Zoo has announced the birth of a new pangolin pup. The panglet, as I like to say, or pango pup as they are called, which is almost as good as bintlet, honestly, was born to mom Virginia and is the second successful birth of a pangolin at Brookfield this year, which is a huge deal for the most trafficked animal in the world, as there is actually a lot of kind of push and pull, maybe controversy is the word, about having them in human care at all. And as such, there is a very small population of pangolins available for this program at this time. And then that does bring us to our deaths for the week, and I'm only going to touch on a few. The Columbus Zoo and Aquarium has said goodbye to Bert, a resident moose at the zoo. A necropsy has been performed, and the zoo is still awaiting results to find out exactly what happened to him. Bert was an absolute legend at the zoo, and one of my favorite memories when I'm there is just watching him spend time in the water. I never really thought of Moosafaris? Actually, the plural is just moose, but that's no fun. And I just never thought of moose as water animals. But seeing Bert live his best aquatic life was really awesome and memorable to me. And then our friends at Southwick Zoo have said an unexpected goodbye to Thelma, one of the 2 white rhinoceroses that called the zoo home. Thelma, along with her companion Louise, were Betsy, the head of Southwick's, who has been on the podcast. They were her favorite animals there, by like a lot. Thelma and Louise both became very sick unexpectedly, with vet staff and consultants working around the clock to try to save the rhinos. Teams from Tufts University, Capron Park Zoo, Roger Williams Park Zoo, Wilderness Wildlife Center, and, of course, the whole team at Southwick's all quickly collaborated to try to save Thelma's life. And while that didn't work, they are still working to make sure Louise doesn't pass as well, and it appears as though she is out of the woods now. She remains off exhibit for monitoring and additional care. And I know how hard of a loss this is for Betsy and the entire Southwick's team. So sending all of the love during this challenging time. And that moves us on to the rest of our Zoo News section for the week. The Buffalo Zoo has spent the last few years hosting the Zoomagination Lantern Festival, a huge fundraiser for the zoo that brings Asian lanterns shaped like animals to the facility. It not only makes the zoo even more beautiful during the day, but also allows the zoo to open for night hours and to bring in a different clientele. Unfortunately, the changes the Trump administration has made pertaining to visas have prevented the company that provides the lanterns, Tianyu, from sending their artists to the country from China. As such, Zoomagination is canceled this year, and the zoo is now struggling to put together an all-new autumn-themed event during September and October. And yes, it's great that the zoo is working hard to find a solution and still create something for the community and to, fund the amazing work that they do. But it's a real shame that a popular event and one that gets conservation messaging in front of an audience that doesn't visit the zoo otherwise has been canceled because of xenophobia. Okay. Now we're going to talk about Sloth World again. Guys, the theme of this episode, outside of the incredible interview with LynnLee, is basically that governments are problematic. And this is another one of those. So yeah, going back to the Sloth World discussion. And I will say in a positive way, I've talked repeatedly about how the efforts of so many people and organizations coming together under the leadership of the Sloth Conservation Foundation and the Sloth Institute led to the dismantling of Sloth World before it opened. And I'm still so proud to have been a small part of that, and that so many people in the Rossifari community got involved. Well, now I'm actually even prouder of us all, but it's for an ick reason. Internal Florida government emails obtained by a source known as Inside Climate News have shown that people within the government, including regulators in charge of stopping stuff, like what happened with Sloth World, were aware of what was happening and did nothing about it until the public outcry grew so loud. This is not just infuriating, but it's flat out scary because some of these people would be the same individuals tasked with enforcing any new regulations pertaining to sloths or other animals in the state now. So hopefully this new investigation leads to these so-called regulators being replaced by, competent people, or at the very least, it at least puts enough public attention on them that they actually do enforce the regulations that they are paid to enforce. At the end of the day, though, the more we discover about what happened with Sloth World, the more I personally have gone from, how did this happen, to, whoa, how has this not happened time and time again? All right, now we're going to talk about something happier. So it also involves the whole government thing, though. It's interesting. This is at least a different country. So we've talked many times about the 30 beluga whales that have been living in Marineland, a now shuttered aquatic park in Canada that closed its doors back in 2024 amid concerns about animal welfare and also a failing financial model. With laws changing in Canada, the park has been struggling to figure out what to do with its beluga population, with the government actually stopping many of the proposed moves because the Canadian government has banned cetacean performances, and the facilities in other countries that were interested in the whales all still do beluga whale shows. 30 whales. That's a lot of whales. It's not easy to place them. So this all came to a head recently, and we talked about it on here, when Marineland said that it was going to be impossible for the park to keep caring for the belugas. I mean, they haven't been open for 2 years. And they stated that they would be forced to euthanize the entire population if a solution wasn't found. Well, now a solution has been approved to move all of the whales in what will be one of the largest and most complex beluga rescue organizations in history. Facilities that are involved and taking some of the belugas include the Georgia Aquarium, Shedd Aquarium, SeaWorld San Diego, SeaWorld San Antonio, and hopefully Oceanográfica Valencia, which is an aquarium in Spain, who has agreed to take on some of the whales, but are still awaiting permits from the Spanish government. So it looks like those 30 whales are not going to be euthanized after all, which is really, really great news. But it's also interesting to yet again look at how the government just changed the laws and then stopped transfers to other, my understanding was, good facilities. They just happened to do training presentations or, shows, if we're not afraid to use that word. So yeah, just a lot of thoughts on the government this week. But yeah. And last but not least in zoo news, the Rossifari community is sending a congratulations to Dawn Strasser, the former head of neonates at the Cincinnati Zoo, on her retirement. Dawn's career spanned 45 years, in which she helped care for over 600 babies across 80 species, including being involved in the birth and raising of Fiona the hippo. What an amazing impact to have had on the zoo and on so many animals across so many species. And, we often talk about the fact that all of the animals in zoos are ambassadors for their species. So Dawn was an ambassador for all of those species and all of those animals as well. Congratulations, Dawn.
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news.
All right, it is sea turtle nesting season again, which seems to happen like every year. And the Hilton Head Island Sea Turtle Patrol has announced that it has located 350 nests already this year. That is up from 237 nests last year, a huge increase year to year. This is especially important as sea turtles return to the same beach to nest most of the time, so it's not like these turtles are just rolling in from the Florida beaches or whatever. The tricky thing about figuring out how sea turtle nesting populations are doing overall from year to year is that most of the surveys are done in local areas, so it's hard to get the full picture of all of the turtles. So, while Hilton Head has over 100 more nests this year than last year, it's possible that a storm will wipe out all the nests in, say, Galveston, Texas. That said, anytime a positive record is reached anywhere for sea turtles, I am here for it. And then last but not least in conservation news this week, scientific experts will be meeting for CITES 34th Meeting of the Animals Committee from July 13th to the 17th in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm realizing that when you're listening to this, it's the last day of that. But anyway, topics of discussion. I'm going to change the tense now because I had said will include, but instead included conservation progress and plans for the sustainable management and trade of corals, sharks and rays, big cats, and amphibians, though obviously other fauna did get discussed as well. So keep changing that tense. We love CITES and we hope that this has gone well.
It's time for other news. It's time for other news. Hey, now, right now, it's time. It's time for other news. Hey, it's a segue to the part called other news.
All right, and then we have two stories in other news this week. There have been a series of wildfires rampaging through Cheyenne Mountain State Park near Colorado Springs, which is an absolutely beautiful area I've been lucky to play a few times. But this story isn't about that. It's not about me. It's not always about you, John. Gosh, get over yourself. I'm sorry, what? Anyway, as firefighters showed up to fight one of the fires, they got a surprise helper. Goldie the goat showed up. Goldie is a family pet that lives near the area that is ablaze, and Goldie ran up to the firefighters and escorted them directly to the fire. Goldie then hung out in the area, eating browse, which actually helped to contain the fire in the area. Proof that some goats can be heroes. Also, it's crazy how much, wildfires just happen right now. I just did that story about Colorado, but literally today in the area of Harrisburg that I am in, there was an air quality warning that, depending on the exact area you were in, was either code red or code purple, which is real bad. Don't go outside and try not to breathe, y'all. That was because of wildfires that are happening in Canada that were blowing this way, and also out in Minnesota. So, there's just a whole lot of this going on, y'all. Kind of sucks. Anyway, I hope that all of the wildfire fighters find their own Goldie the goat. And speaking of heroes, I've talked about my favorite book series, Dungeon Crawler Carl, on here a few times now. One of the principal characters of the series is GC BWR NW Princess Donut, the Queen Anne Chonk, who is a Persian cat. Author Matt Dinneman recently announced on social media that he has adopted a Persian cat named Princess Svetlana of the Dinneman Imperium, first of her name, destroyer of filth, daughter of the Oakfell, she who purrs, and is also, like I said, a Persian cat. And that's cool, and I'm excited about that, but I'm also so impressed by his messaging around it. Not only did he share his beautiful new princess with the world, but the longest part of his post is dedicated to discussing the fact that Persians are different than regular cats and require a very specific type of care. He says he can't recommend anyone getting them as they are brachycephalic. And that means basically that they have a really hard time breathing. They were bred to have a squished face. It's similar with some dog species that are like that. And dog breeds, I said species, whatever. He goes on to discuss the fact that he would hate it if DCC's popularity, and especially the TV show version of the story that was recently announced, would give rise to a demand for these cats and the unethical breeding of them. And I really appreciate Matt's approach to sharing this message. He seems to love animals a lot, which is pretty awesome, given my absolute obsession with his books. So congrats to the Dinneman clan.
Oh, animal holidays. Animal holidays. Hey!
All right, and that brings us to our animal holidays for the week. July is Plastic Free July, National Bison Month, Parks and Recreation Month, and Wild About Wildlife Month. And then for our individual days, the 18th is Vaquita Day and starts National Moth Week. The 19th is Echidna Day and launches National Zookeeper Week. The 20th launches Coral Reef Awareness Week, and the 21st is Andean Bear Day and World Bush Dog Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. All right, so you got a short one last week and a long one this week, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Rossifari Zoo News. I want to say thank you to LynnLee Schmidt for hopping on and sharing that story with us. And I also want to remind y'all that there is a Patreon where you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month. Patreon.com/Rossifari. I'm incredibly thankful to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And then, of course, we want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to the episode this week, including Anya Keene, Colleen Linehan, Kim Cooley-Croninger, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Emily Rockbook, Dr. Natalie Taco, Andrew King, Tatum Flores, Justin Williams, Turan Hanton, Dr. Laura Shank, Melissa Reed, Ren Howell, Jacob Zinn, Holly Page, Nikki Morley, Ethan Ferguson, Dr. Zoe Rossi, Barbara Bennett, Ken Tryon, Marianne Rossi, Ann Yoshioka, Kristen Dickey, Jake Cash, Ali Malensky, Kay Malensky,
The Malenskys.
April Taylor, Daniel Cohen, Kelly Palawi, Rowena White, Zach Poe, Crystal Chapman, Jamie Chavez, Kristen Cleo, Maddie Pats, Jennifer Zune, Becca Robinson, Strix, Michael Sebastian, Melissa Kinney, Rick Schwartz, Sierra Bowen, Sam Evans, Stephen Rossi, Chris Infield, Nicole Lee, and Michaela Baratka. Thank you all so much for contributing to Zoo News this week. We'll be back on Tuesday with a brand new interview episode. And by the way, y'all, I mentioned that it's the start of National Zookeeper Week this week, and I don't know if you remember this, but that's when we launched Rossifari. So the way that time works, things are a little wonky, but we are almost done with this season of Rossifari. And we'll talk more about what that means at a later time. Spoiler alert, it probably doesn't mean anything. Things are going really well. But I'm excited. It's always fun to start it in episode 1. So yeah, we'll talk more about that. We'll have the episode on Tuesday. It's going to be a great time. Don't forget to come join us on the Discord. And until then, remember, friends, the word news and credits backwards. Or cider keys one.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.